Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Taylor Ann, and right now I am here with Mr. Gary Hahn, the North Carolina Sportscaster of the Year. Congratulations on your accomplishment, sir.
Thank you, Taylor Ann. This is my second Sportscaster of the Year award, and I've been in North Carolina now. I think next season will be my 32nd at NC State. So this is a very, very difficult award to win. And when you win it, you need to enjoy it. So I am definitely enjoying this. It's an honor to be voted as the Sportscaster of the Year by your peers. There are many, many talented men and women who are sportscasters in this state. So I feel very, very honored to win this for the second time.
I can imagine, especially there's so many talented sports writers and sportscasters in North Carolina. So really, really big congrats to you on that. So my first question to you is, how did you initially get started in the sportscasting field itself?
Well, it's kind of a long story. I spent the first 11 years of my life about 40 miles northwest of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, near the Ohio border, in an area in Beaver Falls, New Brighton, Pennsylvania. And I grew up listening to the Pittsburgh Pirates on radio. And they had two Hall of Fame announcers. One was sort of a wild man, Bob Prince, and the other was a straight man, Jim Woods, who was his partner. And these guys seemed to be having the most fun. They were having more fun than ought to be allowed for a job. And all of my relatives worked in factories. They worked in the steel mills, or they worked in, my dad and my grandfather worked in a zinc smelting plant. And so I could see at an early age that wasn't something that I really wanted to do. And I just was enthralled with Bob Prince and Jim Woods and the Pirates. And I thought, man, nobody has that much fun at a job. That's something I want to do. And so I never did get to become the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, but I knew by the time I was probably 13 years old, I wanted to be a sportscaster and I wanted to be on radio. And so I sort of charted my course from there. I chose a college, and a college where you didn't just have book learning. You got on the air as a freshman, made stupid mistakes, because I thought that that was the only way that you could really learn what you needed for your craft, was to get on the air and make mistakes. And so I chose to go to Butler University, a small private college in Indianapolis, Indiana. And that's where I went. I was a freshman. I was ripping and reading wire copy, doing newscasts and doing whatever else I could do to get on the air. And it sort of went from there. Then after I graduated, the Lord opened up some doors for me to go to a lot of different places. And I just kept moving around and tried to advance. And finally, I landed at North Carolina State University, and I've been here for more than 30 years.
That's awesome. And that's really cool how you kind of knew the direction that you were going since 13. A lot of people aren't fortunate enough to figure it out at such a young age. So I'm sure that in your career, the communications field has changed a lot. So I'm wondering how you personally adapted to the way media and sportscasting have changed.
Well, yeah, there have been some changes in the business, but I think what I do is, I think if you were just starting out, you'd want to do a lot of the same things. You know, you got to work hard, you got to get along with people, you got to be able to take it when things don't go your way. Those are three of the biggest things that I think any broadcaster needs to keep in mind. And it's all about the audience. It's not about you being on the air and doing NC State sports on radio. I'm talking to an audience who can't see a thing. So I've got to be their eyes. And I've learned that in order to keep an audience tuned in, and that's what you're supposed to do because the advertisers are paying for that, you're trying to keep them tuned in and trying to hold them for as long as possible. And you can't do that if you're not descriptive. You can't do that if you're too much of a homer. You can't do that if you're ticking people off with your own personal opinions about things. So I've just tried to keep it informational and informative And every once in a while we tell a joke, but I'm not, I'm not a comedian, so I don't try to be somebody I'm not. That's another thing. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Don't try to copy someone else, because you just got to be you. That's the bottom line. You've got to be you. You've got to be descriptive. It's not about you. It's all about the audience. It's what comes out of that radio speaker that counts. And it better be very descriptive, and it better have a lot of information in it, or else you're not going to be able to hold an audience.
Awesome. Well, that's some great advice. Thank you for that. So obviously you've stuck with your position for a while. So I was wondering what your favorite part of it is.
Well, my favorite part of it is that I've never done the perfect broadcast. There's always been something happen that it didn't just end up perfect. Mm-hmm. And I've always tried, I know I'm not going to be perfect, but I've tried for excellence. And I think it was Vince Lombardi, the old Green Bay Packers coach, who said, we can't be perfect, but we can strive for excellence. And if we strive for excellence, we're going to win. And that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to strive for excellence. And that's what keeps me going. I still haven't done that perfect broadcast. And every broadcast, whether you're doing it at home or whether you're away, there are always some challenges that you have to overcome. And this past year, there were a bunch of challenges because we only traveled to one game, and that was a basketball game at Chapel Hill against North Carolina. They were nice enough to let us in, and we got to call the game in the arena, in the Dean Dome. But that was it. Every other broadcast we either did at home, not at courtside like we usually do at PNC Arena, but up at the top of the first level up there where they could keep us away from everybody. And that's how we did home games, and the road games we did off television screen.
Oh, wow.
So that was very, very different from what we're used to doing. We're used to going on the road, sitting courtside, being able to look around and see everything, see the score, see the time. And when you're trying to call it off of television, you just, the only thing that you can describe is what you're seeing on that television screen. And the score might not be up there. The time might not be up there. In football, they may not give you a 22 shot where you see everybody. Somebody may line up to kick a field goal, and you really don't know how long that field goal is because you can't see in the field. You're only seeing the field goal kicker and the holder. So you have to learn to give people the information that you know and not the information you don't know. And so that's something I've learned this year too. Don't tell them what you don't know, tell them what you do know, and then try and go back and piece the rest of it together as you can. So this was a very, very challenging year. I hope it's not repeated again for this coming season. It looks like State's going to have full capacity at Carter Finley Stadium for fans, and I think Carolina's going to do the same. I would assume Duke is going to do the same. So we may be back to being able to travel with the team. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm sure the rest of the crew is too by now, and we're ready to embark on the way it used to be instead of the way it was last year.
I definitely agree with you on that. I'm sure everybody else would also. So you've been alluding to a couple different stories throughout the interview, but I was wondering if you had maybe a favorite story or just like an interesting or cool one from your time as a sportscaster so far.
Well, do you want to know something, an embarrassing moment on the air? What are you looking for?
Just really any kind of story that you want to tell us. If you want to embarrass yourself, you are welcome to.
Well, I'm good at that. I embarrass myself on the air just about every game, so I might as well do this one.
Sure.
All right, NC State is playing at Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. It's the mid-'90s, and usually, when you're on the road, you're not sure whether you're going to get any kind of pregame meal. So I had something at the hotel, just a regular salad, and we go to Texas Tech, and it's a night game, and Texas Tech's got a real good running back that ended up playing in the pros, Bam Morris. And to make a long story short, State wins the game at the end on, I think it was the last play of the game. Bam Morris fumbles the football, gives State a chance to win, and the Pack takes advantage of it. and wins the ball game. But that's not the real story. The real story is at halftime, just after halftime, we get into the second half, and I don't know what I ate for dinner, but I don't know whether it had some Mexican water on it or whatever. Whatever. I don't know whether that salad was washed in Mexico or what, but I start getting these rumblings in my stomach, and of course I'm on the air, and let's see, back then Gary Dornberg was my color announcer, so he's sitting to my right. Johnny Evans is down on the field. We've got an engineer, and Howard Baum is a statistician, and we're all packed into this small booth there at Texas Tech. Well, the third quarter moves along, and I'm getting deeper and deeper into distress. And with about 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm really, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm just barely making it. End of the third quarter, clock goes to 0. I make the fastest intro into a spot break I've ever done. Fortunately, the men's room was right behind our booth, and I go sprinting out of there, and there's this old gentleman that's just about to the door, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, emergency. I'll be back, and I'll be out of there in 30 seconds." So I get in there, and well, I did what I needed to do, and I was back on the air in less than 60 seconds. And that's how
Well,
that
nobody
was the famous Texas Tech story. So the moral of the story is, you better watch what you eat before you go on the air.
I mean, it sounds like nobody else really noticed that you were messing up.
Oh, no, nobody in the audience knew that I was about ready to die or explode. But that was the way. Of course, the crew did. They all knew, and because I told them, I said, I'm not sure. I might have to leave. Somebody else might have to take over. This is going to go right down to the wire, and I'm in agony. So that was it.
Hey, you're a pro, though. You kept it moving. That's a good lesson. Nice.
If you're looking for behind the scenes stuff, that's real behind the scenes stuff right there.
I think that's one of my favorite stories somebody's told me. So you take the cake in that one. You've been giving us lots of advice, but I have another question for you. For somebody looking to improve their public speaking or play-by-play broadcasting abilities, what tips or tricks would you have for them?
Well, a lot of young people don't have the kind of voice that they want, and I didn't either. If you were to hear my voice in high school, you would have said, there's no way this guy can be a broadcaster. He just doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I went to Butler, one of my professors, he just told me right out. He said, I don't like your voice, and I'm not sure whether you can make it or not. But this man, there was something about him. He was trying to get the best out of me, and he hit my button. And that was the same button that some competitors in sports, like a Russell Wilson, who played quarterback at NC State, have. If you tell Russell Wilson he can't do something, he's going to do it. No, they told him he was too small to play college football. Well, he turned out to be a college star. They told him he was too small for the NFL, didn't have this, didn't have that, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. Well, look what he's done. So I've sort of got a little bit of that in me, and he hit that button, and I thought, well, I'm going to show you. And I did everything I could to improve my voice. I took public speaking. I took voice and diction. The Butler radio department was in the Jordan College of Music at Butler. So we had all these vocal people there. One of the professors, he taught me how to talk from the diaphragm. He told me how to, we would go up the scales, and I go, oh, we do all of that stuff. And he taught me a lot, and I kept at it, and I kept at it, and I kept at it. The voice is a muscle, and you can improve it. Mm-hmm. It's just like biceps. You can get bigger, you can get better, but you've got to have the right kind of guidance. And I did everything I could possibly do to improve my voice. I tried to, you're not supposed to do this, but I would force it from time to time, and then I would get into where it wasn't forced anymore. It was coming out the right way, and it was coming out normal and without any sort of, hokum. And that's one of the things that I would say to people. You can change, you can develop, and you can develop your voice, and you have to be very dedicated. You have to do whatever you think is necessary to do. I mean, I'm not a great singer, but I took singing lessons. I took voice and diction. I did, everything that I could possibly do because I wanted a better delivery and I wanted a better performance. That's number one. Number two is you can't do enough if you have a desire to be a radio play-by-play person or even a television play-by-play person. And to me, television is easy because everybody can see what's going on. You basically just do a lot of feature stuff, and the color man pretty much carries you, and that's television. But radio's a different deal. And the more play-by-play experience you can get on the way up, the better. There was one time I was working in Indianapolis for a country music station. And during the day, I was a jack of all trades and master of none. When somebody went on vacation, if it was the midnight to 6 guy, I'd jock country music from midnight to 6. But normally, I was in charge of a lot of paperwork and a lot of stuff like that behind the scenes. But I also backed up the sports director there and did all of this other stuff. But when push came to shove, I went 25 miles outside of town and worked out a deal with a station out there that did a lot of sports. And I think I did something like 80 broadcasts of high school football. I did 2 high schools for football. I did 2 high schools for boys and girls basketball. I made a deal with Butler University where we could do like 15 road games, and I called those. And you develop a style that way. And if you can call a high school game, you can call a Super Bowl game. Because in high school, you don't have people feeding you information. You've got to get that information yourself. And you go to some of these high schools, the fields aren't marked. There's a telephone pole at the 25, a telephone pole at the 50, another telephone pole at the other 25, and there's an end zone. Mm-hmm. Well, you got to figure out where the ball is. It's just, I'm telling you, if you can do high school football, you can do a Super Bowl game if you can do it well. And the more play-by-play you do, the better you get. You develop your style, and you develop what's important. To me, description is number one. And so, how do I describe a basketball game? Because a lot of play-by-play announcers, they get wrapped up in whether their team's winning or losing, and they forget to tell the person who's got the ball, what's the score, what's the time, and then call the play, call the basket, beat the crowd. Those are just some of the things you learn to do. But the more play-by-play you can do it. I mean, and I did all those 80 games. I did most of them for $12.50 a game. I had to give the other $12.50 to the guy that they made me work with, who was a nice old man that everybody loved in the community. And I took that $12.50 and put it in the gas tank of my '69 Pontiac, and that's how I drove all around Central Indiana calling these games. I didn't make a dime, but I got experience. It was worth a lot of money. And so those are some of the things that I would recommend.
Awesome. Well, so many good pieces of advice in that. But my last question for you, and you've given us so much advice, but I'm sure there's more in there. Do you have like kind of a last piece of advice for maybe a recent college graduate looking to get into your line of work?
Yeah, I think so. Find something that you're good at and stick to it. Mm. I think that's it. Find something you're good at. And if you're not real good at it, but you think you can be good at it, that was my case. Mm. I thought I could be good at it, but I really wasn't at the time, but I wanted it bad enough that I would do just about anything legally to get there, then choose that path. But I think the best thing to do is find something you're good at, stick to it, and again, work hard, get along with people, and be able to take it when things don't go your way. I mean, I've had some disappointments along the way, I finished second for a job calling the Detroit Pistons of the NBA. I finished second for the Carolina Panthers. But you take those defeats and you use them to tell yourself, well, I'm close. And in the case of the Panthers, I had this job and I wanted to stay in this job. So it actually worked out okay for me. There were other forces that were asking me to get involved with that particular situation. But those are the things. You got to be able to take it when things don't go your way. And if they don't go your way, you finish second. Well, you finish second. You're close, and then use that. It's just like the story of the person that was had a big boulder, and they had to break it up into little pieces. And you take your pick, and you just keep banging and banging and banging and banging, and pretty soon the rock cracks. Pretty soon it breaks. Pretty soon you get the breaks, and you get where you want to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Hahn. Those were some amazing pieces of advice. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers watching at home did as well. But thank you so much again for taking the time to come and speak with us today.
My pleasure, Taylor Ann. Good to be with you. And again, thanks to all of those people in North Carolina who voted me let's see, I guess we're back 1 year, 2020.
2020, yes.
North Carolina Sportscaster of the Year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to everybody who watched. Mm-hmm.